Imagine driving a car in a place where suddenly all the people around you start convulsing and falling. As you look around you, airplane accidents are happening all over the place. No matter where you go, you will find people lying on the ground and hanging. If you meet them all at once, they are all healthy and they are all here, I believe all humans around the world. They are all healthy and speak with one voice. The lesson here is that they're not just saying they want to help. What do you think you'd do then? You must be terrified, right? That's what happened with our hero today, so let's start the video to understand exactly what happened. I'm Mahmood, and we begin our pluribus recap. The series begins with a scientist at an observatory that monitors cosmic movement via satellite. This scientist suddenly detected a strange frequency the first time he saw it, so he immediately called his friend and confronted him about it. His friend was even more surprised and disbelieving, so he called two of his colleagues and asked them to see this hesitation. They too were in disbelief, so they turned to another group of their classmates and made them see this hesitation as well. Everyone here believed that this was a message sent from space, from aliens from another world. So everyone is currently trying to figure out how to translate this message. But while everyone else was trying to come up with a literal translation of the message, the first scientist, or the one who discovered this, understood something very, very important. This signal is made up of 4 frequencies grouped together. Surely you're telling me what recipe, Uncle Ho, when we're in the kitchen? I tell you, Blake Giraffe, my friend, it's a DNA recipe. In a very real sense, if this frequency were to actually come together and work in a lab, it could create nucleic acid. Immediately, the state started making DNA in secret laboratories in order to understand what this DNA was that had suddenly appeared to them via satellite. I'm counting down the days, and it's usually close to a year for all of this. Currently, 2 scientists come to the lab at night to continue working on the same nuclear material, and we find them, by the way, bored and frustrated because they have been working for a year without knowing what benefit the nuclear material has. Anyway, they put on their protective suits and went to the oven where the nuclear material was being used, and today we were told they would completely dispose of it because nothing new has appeared to show its usefulness. But here's the thing, they caught up with a fugitive, and one of the scholars came out and grabbed the fugitive with her hands and was wondering what the meaning of this particular death was. Suddenly, the rat recovered and was in her hands, penetrating the glove and touching her hand. The second scientist immediately took the mouse from her, put it back and told her to quickly sterilize her hands. She was already sanitizing her hands, but suddenly the world found her having strange convulsions as if she was having an epileptic seizure. So he quickly picked it up and started to leave the lab, but she didn't slow down. She got up and did a very ordinary second, but she got up as if she were a purely absent one. We don't see the frankness beyond that, but we see it afterward. A little while later, I went to the lab guard, I approached him. Immediately the guard, Chen go too, and the rest is asleep. And the scientist, this is the second one, is also absent, and he goes to the cleaner in the place and he touches him, and immediately this cleaner, he stays absent, he is the second one. Can you say that, my friend? That the mouse was a virus. The idea here is that immediately, everyone who was hostile 1 second hostile 1/3, and 1/3 hostile 1/4. Then they all gathered in Ho-Ho's lab and started taking samples of their bugs and planting them in very large boxes. It is understood that samples will be traced to each place in the cans. His conquest means right. She could say that 2 or 3 months from now, the whole world will be infected with the same strange virus. And don't forget that this virus is already a nuclear weapon that scientists are lifting out of the liquefaction in space. It's already been 3 months since all of this, and we're at a book fair. We see renowned author Carol Sturka, who is currently at the fair, talking about part of her latest novel, and well, everyone is very pleased with it. Then Carol finishes talking and starts signing autographs for fans, of course with her best friend, assistant, and right-hand woman Helen, and Helen organizes and helps her with almost everything until the day is over. Everyone just takes each other and travels back home. Their country is America, specifically the city of Albuquerque. My friend, I know you must have heard this name before, if you've watched the series from Brick Hangabad, because this is the same city. But these are details I don't have to like to show you that I'm seasoned and understanding. The thing is, they arrive Carol and Helen Albuquerque, and the first thing they do is they go to a casa, eat a little bit, drink a little bit of juice, and then leave. At that time, Carol wanted to light a cigarette, so she and Hiran kept drinking. By the way, it was a very nice quiet time, and they had many stories to tell over cigarettes. During that time, Carol found that the sky had a lot of airplanes working and flying all of a sudden, all in a line, which doesn't always happen. Unsurprisingly, I found someone with a rickshaw making an accident in front of the casino. Carol checked on this man and found him. The point is that Carol tried to help him but didn't know, so she turned to Helen for help, but Helen didn't respond. Suddenly, Helen fainted and began to convulse, i.e., get hurt. But Carol didn't know and was terrified for her friend, so she picked up the phone to call the ambulance, found that the phone was broken, and entered the casino to ask for help, and that's when the shock hit. All around, Carol found that they were all convulsing. Immediately, Carol grabbed a blanket that was next to her and put Helen on it. Then she went to the car that was in front of her and tried to get the man in it to take Helen and drive her to the hospital. But she didn't know how to do it, so she pushed him out of the car so she could go shopping. Then she got out, pulled Helen back into the car, and immediately re-entered the car and ran to the hospital. The idea here is that Carol was walking when she saw a police car and was very happy, but when she got closer she found it familiar and with each horror she walked down the hill in Arabic, only to be struck by an unnatural sight, to reiterate that the country, literally the whole world, is going up in flames. Planes are crashing, accidents are everywhere, and the world is in shambles. However, she persisted and kept walking to get to the hospital and save her friend. She eventually made it there, but the place was not much different from the rest of the world and was in ruins, but Omariani went down there and asked for help. The insides of all of them convulsed. She didn't shut up and went to the side of the bed to move Helen to it. She then drove Helen, but literally just over a few years. Then the breath was completely severed and completely dead. Carol was horrified and didn't know what was going on, what exactly was happening, or why her friend had died. She cried, and all of a sudden they were all in the hospital, so they got out of the convulsions and were discharged. Even those in Arabic with Carol got up and left. Carol didn't understand what exactly happened, so she got out of the carriage and yelled at everyone and said, "In what?" One of these people approached Carol and tried to touch her, but Carol pushed him away. And that's when Carol suddenly found everyone in one voice and in a loud voice suddenly said to her, "Don't be afraid. We want to help you, Carol." As soon as I saw that everyone was talking to her at once, I panicked, sewed up the Arabic she had with her, and immediately ran out of here. "Where did you go?" I went to her house. There was nowhere else she could go to hide. When she arrived, Helen got out of the carriage and ran to the house. She was not opening the door. She found that the key was missing, so she carefully grabbed it and tried to break the lock. But what happened here is that two children came terrifyingly and said to her together in one breath too, "Carol, you forgot to leave under the vase a spare key?" Carol was horrified that this was real, so she pulled out the spare key, pulled Helen, and entered the house. After that, she started locking any window, any door, and covering any glass in front of her. When she did, she found all her wages had gotten into their carts and started to leave the city and walk. Some of them, by the way, came and removed all the bellies lying on the street and took them away too. At that moment, Carol stood at his side and almost died of fright, not understanding what was going on. He turned on the TV. Can he or can he not tell her what's going on? I said that all the channels stood up except for one channel, which was live from the White House. Carol is happy that she finally has someone to reassure her, but she is relieved when she sees that the TV says, "When you're okay, Carol, call this number." Where did Carol finally come and decide to ring this number and understand? When I first saw Carol, it was the White House spokesperson who was responding to her. This man said to her, "First of all, Carol, I'm sorry for the way you introduced us, but I want to tell you that no one favors you, and your life is 100% yours." And she hates him because she told him, "You're what?" He told her, "We are human beings just like you." But to understand what happened is that about a year and a half ago, scientists detected a signal coming from space. This signal was made up of 4 responses. They realized that these 4 reactions were nucleic acids combined into one nucleic acid. They synthesized the nucleic acid in the lab and tested it using an oven, but this acid leaked out of the lab in the form of a virus. This virus doesn't do anything dangerous. On the contrary, it connects all people together. Now the whole world is infected with the virus and we're all connected. And anyone would talk about it as if you were talking about the whole world. At this point, Carol said, "How come I didn't get you?" The man told her that this was something they didn't know. When the virus spread, everyone was infected, but there were people who couldn't tolerate them and died, like your friend Hanan. And a small fraction have immunity, and they are 12 human beings around the world just like this. And right now, Carol, we're trying to set the world straight and fix the roads and everything so that it's as normal as it was in the beginning because, of course, because of the sudden transformation and people being infected, there were accidents and all kinds of trouble, but we'll fix all of that. He took how many days of rest, and then at this time we will begin training on the status of you and the other 11 so that we know that you are not infected and remain one of us. Carol was so shocked when he said this to her, she immediately turned off the TV and cried herself to sleep. Kirul Naim, the people infected with the virus, decided to do something complete, he said, so that we know how to deal with Kirul, and she accepts us. You'll find someone whose face is upside down and she loves it. You know what, buddy? Someone who lived in an Arab country, Morocco, came from there through Mexico, and then they put her on a plane and let her drive herself to America, and you will stay so clean. So she had a clean shower, and then they gave her a makeup and clothes and let her go to Kirul and try to communicate with her herself. Carol, by the way, by this time she was so tired that it was morning, and the first thing she did when she woke up was to wrap the body of Helen, her friend, and go out and sell the garden of the house, and dig in the ground to make a grave and bury her friend. Until the girl from Morocco came to her. The girl came to Carol and said, "I'm sorry I came to you, but we've been digging for almost 2 hours and you're very tired, so take some water and drink it." And Carol said to her, "How are you watching me?" The girl told her about a military drone flying in the sky. "You won't see it, but it's watching you." Carol was surprised by what was happening and wanted to feed the girl, so she grabbed her water glass, poured it all over her, and kicked her out. But here Carol felt something was wrong. She entered her house, printed the last novel she loved, which she had originally written herself, and showed it to the girl. She said to her, Are you the one who was chosen to talk to me because you are like the hero in the novel? The girl said, My name is Zushia, and we chose this particular washi opposite you to make you more comfortable, since this washi is much closer to the hero's washi that you swore by yourself in the novel. At this point, Kirol was so nervous that they had spied on her, that they didn't know all these details, that she cursed and snarled at Zosha. For some inexplicable reason, Zosha began to convulse and fell to the ground. Surprised by what was happening, Kirol imagined the Arab and walked around the city to see the rest of the people, finding some workers also infected with the virus, convulsing now like Zosha. I stood there until a couple of minutes later. Kirol imagined some in anger. And when the other girl came, or when Zoshea came, Kirol naturally interacted with these people. She dialed the same number that they were from Diane Hulha and told them, Send me Zosha. Zoshea told her a little later, and she preferred to talk to Kirol, a laborer digging needles. Kirol said to her, When I was a little nervous about you, why is it that all the humans infected with the virus around the world are also hanging like this, just like you? Is it because? I told her, Unfortunately, because we're all connected too. And Kirol said to her, Did you get into any trouble because I gave you a spasm one time out of the blue? Zushi was silent, and Kirol said to her, Your silence means that people died because of it, right? Zushi sadly told her, When we once suddenly convulsed almost 12 million human beings. People died in accidents due to this, that, and the other, during the convulsions that suddenly occurred. Carol was shocked and backed away, not realizing the number she had unknowingly killed. Zusha took advantage of Carol's tiredness and told her, I'll help you get rid of the needles quickly. Immediately after the union, he flew her home in a helicopter, dropped off a small bulldozer, and then walked away. Zusha thought it was a bulldozer and moved. At the end of the day, Kirol stopped by Zoshea and told her to talk a little. She said, Kirol, you didn't tell me that there are 11 other people who are immune to this virus. Zosha told her he was, yes, but today we discovered another person we didn't know, and now there are 12 more people left. And Kirol said to her, How many of them understand English like me? She said, Almost 5. I told her, Set me up with these 5. Zoshea was silent for a while, then said, And of course, my friend, I know you're wondering how I identified the repeater so easily, but don't forget that I'm telling you that they're all connected, and every single one of the people who are currently immune to the immune system has someone standing next to them talking like Carol, like she doesn't have Zusha. Anyway, Carol sleeps, and the next day Zosha gets on a giant airplane and they fly to Spain. By the way, Carol was very scared because she is a full-fledged airplane pilot and it's just her, Zosha, and a co-pilot. There she finally meets the 5 who, like her, are not infected. The first 5 people Carol meets are from different countries, 1 Indian, 1 Chinese, 1 Chinese, and 1 Wah. And each one of these people is accompanied by a family member who is accompanied by his wife, son, uncle, and so on. In the end, Carol was like, Where's the 5th one of these guys? They are 4, but Zosha told her there are 5. A man named Kamba from Mauritania insisted that he would not meet you unless he came by presidential plane. It took a bit of time from us to be able to give it to him, but when he got outside, I managed to see him. Indeed, they were all found outside. They found the US president's very, very large airplane. Of course, they were impressed that it's an impressive airplane, but now they've taken some of them and they're all inside this airplane. First of all, keep an eye on everyone, because Kamba has us below all the other people who are not infected with the virus, live comfortably in the new world that now exists, and has everyone working for him like slaves and haze. Carol counted it all and sat with all 5 of them in a conference room in the airplane. Then she told Zochia to take all the people who are here and stand with them until he tells them to come. I did it for Zosha and went out. And that's when Carol walked in and said, Are we going to save the world? How? They all coldly said, Save him from what? And Carol said, Who are these people? How can we normalize them? And she said, You know, Carol, right now there are no prisons, there is no racial segregation because of skin color or gender, there are no troubles, there are no wars, there are no conflicts. Why do you want to change all that? And Carol said to her, Because all the things you're talking about are beautiful, but also these are not us. These are beings, not human. Then do you think they will keep us living like this and keep serving us? After they figure out what went wrong, they'll know they're going to turn us into the same thing. At this moment, everyone said that we have no sense to change because these people appeared to be happy and good at the same moment. They were saying that she had gone crazy because no one wanted to talk sense to her, so he got up and went to Nadim Zusha and everyone outside and said, Immediately, tomorrow works, and everyone eats amidst the forest and landscape, and everyone puts their favorite dish in front of them amidst top-notch service. Zushi told everyone, Enjoy this meat and fish because it is the last meat you will ever see, because we don't kill animals, fish, or even insects. Everyone was surprised by it, but I didn't hear anything. They said we were vegetarians, and that's it. At this point, I tried to talk to everyone else. I found them also talking about peace and safety. Klon said to Zochia, Can you tell me how many people died because of the virus you spread in the world? Zochia said that in the beginning we were moving discreetly and quietly, and it was all quite so that the army wouldn't discover and stop us. Consequently, we quickly spread the virus around the world in seconds. Unfortunately, that's what made the big issue. Due to this, my friend's number shook everyone up, and everyone was really shocked. So Kirill stood up and told them, I'm not going to talk anymore. I want you to see with your own eyes. I'm going back to my hometown of Albuquerque, but just think that you betrayed the world when you refused to help me. Kirill said nothing and walked away, but Hope, my friend, fainted because she was so bigoted and couldn't bring herself to tell everyone to get closer so they could overtake her. When Carol showed up, she preferred to insult Zosha because she was close to her and she preferred to insult her, and everyone who compared Zosha to the infected people had 2 seizures. Carol realized that by doing so, she had confirmed that she had caused the death of XX million human beings. But all in all, it's over. Zosha has excelled, and that's the end of it. On the second day, Carol began to find Zoshia telling her the gazelle plane that would take you back to Albuquerque, and every 5th second, by the way, she went with Dacamba Aus. Carol came down to Kamba and told him, I honestly liked Zosha and wanted to take her from you, but she told me that in order to take her from you, I had to ask your permission so that I wouldn't hurt your hair. Carol, at the time, my friend, was bursting with nerves over this mule, so she called Zosha and told her, I'm not dangerous, you're free to choose, and she left her and walked away. Carol then boarded the airplane and Kamba boarded, along with all of the Sultan's harem, including Zusha. But Carol was frankly shocked by the rest of it, and felt that just because she's my friend doesn't mean she can't be a bitch. She immediately got off the plane and stood in front of Kemba's plane so that you know she didn't agree and wanted Zoshea again. 2 or 3 hours later, we find Carol on her airplane back in America, specifically in the city of Elba. By the way, Carol brought Zosha with her on the plane. And for the record, just because Carol brought Zosha along doesn't mean that Zosha is her friend or anything. On the contrary, Carol is not as brutal as she is. It's not for any particular reason, but Carol isn't comfortable with the idea of these people. Anyway, Carol now regretted Zosha and told her, all I've met now are people who know how to speak English. And Lily remains. What do other people do? Where do they live? And how do they organize? Zoshea told her that they were ordinary people, like one in Yemen named Abdul Karim who works as a porter, and another in Spain who is 89 years old and works as a candy maker. Zusha then said that the only one who didn't deal with us and stayed away was the person I told you we didn't know anything about, and then we found out that he has a band like you and is currently in Spain and has stayed home and hasn't come out. At this moment, Kirill just said, this is the one we want. The one who can understand that what is happening is wrong and help me. So Kirill told her, I want to communicate with this person. I gave her a satellite phone and made her ring me, and the rest is history. Once the man doesn't answer, Carol rings again. He answers and hangs up. Carol rings again. He answers and curses, and Carol rang back and cursed him with a big swear word. She went and stood in his face, completely desperate to communicate with him or understand her situation, so she went back to herself and broke down, knowing she was alone. A little later, the airplane landed in America, and her husband opened Kirill in Arabic, returned it to Albuquerque, heard it, and left. Kirill entered her home and sat in front of the TV, literally unable to process all that had happened to her in such a short time. But after a while, Kirill heard banging on the door, opened it, and saw these people had food to eat. Kirill looked at them and said, You don't understand. I told you I don't want anything. They said to her, But Kirill, you are a devoted eater and you must eat. She told them, There's no invitation. I'll bring my food and cook. Kirill stood with them and looked at the refrigerator, only to find it completely empty, and she rode in her carriage and went to the supermarket next to it. I found the supermarket completely empty, so Carol was shocked and then went and picked up the phone and rang them and said, Where's all the food in the supermarket? And they said, Where's all the food in the supermarket? They said, Carol, you have to understand that we have a different system. We don't kill animals and we don't do these other things. And I mean, back then there was a supermarket where people bought, people won, people lost, people died of hunger. But now we are all one, and therefore all the secrets of the world without exception are distributed to us in Paul. I told her that I'm not done with this, but the supermarket has to go back to the first one again and the talk should be left to you. They stopped the group and hung up the phone. Carol came outside the supermarket with many, many trucks, and each truck was filled with products to fill the supermarket. Immediately, these trucks were parked in front of the supermarket, and there were a lot of people from all over the city, and they immediately got into these trucks and took out the goods, entered the supermarket, and stacked all the goods inside. Consequently, the entire market was completely stacked in less than half an hour. Afterward, they said goodbye to Carol and left. Of course, I shouldn't say that Carol was, even though she didn't like what was happening, but she was awed by what had just happened. Anyway, Carol started shopping, got what she wanted, came home to eat like an elephant, and ate like an elephant. He sees that the power is cut off after some time. Of course, I found the power had been cut everywhere worldwide, but after that, I only went back to Carol and Carol Street. So Carol went into the second house. Why is the wife now ringing her and telling her, It's okay, Carol, we weren't trying to scare you, but Carol told her, Why did you do that? I told her because we are all right-wing, so we turned off the electricity, so that's another place. But if you need anything, Carol, anything at all, just tell us, and we'll be there. At the moment, Carol got nervous and told them to tell you what. I'll tell you no, I'll blow the whole place up and I'll be very, very happy. Rail was shocked because a few moments later she had Kirill Zosia banging on her door and he brought her a medicine bomb hard. Kirill was very, very nervous because she was tittering. She decides to let Zosia in to talk to her because she's frankly fed up with being alone. Zosia walked up to Kirill and started talking to her. Kirill told her, "I want to know when you're going to make me look like you and turn into you." Zosia told her that we haven't come up with a way, maybe a week or a month, we don't know. "How can you tell me that my life is in my own hands and that you also want to turn me like you?" Zosia told her, "You still don't know that it's true and the sensation that we are currently feeling." The moment Kirill became more and more fanatical, she took the bomb from her and started playing with it because she thought she was getting a toy bomb from her and thus pulled the fuse. Zosia fainted, grabbed the bomb, threw it away, fell asleep on Kirill to protect her, realized that this was a real bomb, and it exploded right here next to the house. After this happened, Kirill was shocked that they had actually dropped a bomb on her. She came out of the room in a panic and was still reacting. She realized that Zosia was injured by the bomb because she hovered over Kirill and thought she was injured. So Kirill came out to try to stop her bleeding until the ambulance came and took Zosia to the hospital where she was treated. Indeed, after a while, Kirill sees one from her husband's side and tells her not to be afraid. She will be fine. And Kirill said to this guy, "I want to know something. You seriously sent me a medicine bomb, not a toy." And she said, "Because you were the one who was asking for a bomb." And she said to them, "I mean, if I ask you for anything literally, I will send it seriously, even if it's a tank." And she said, "Ah." She said to them, "Even if it's a rocket." And she also said, "Ah." She said to them, "If I ask for a nuclear bomb." And she said too, it struck Carol that these people are willing to do anything to be truly happy. And the truth of the bomb really hit her brain, and she didn't hesitate and went inside to check on her husband. After checking on her, she left the hospital, picked up the broken cart that was in front of the place, headed towards her house, and was shocked to find HIV-positive people standing in front of her house and repairing the damage caused by the bomb. She abandoned them because her side was without her permission. She thought she was leaving and taking her husband to the ambulance. She thought she had given them permission but forgot because of the explosion and the light that had just happened. She fell silent and went home from the silence. She began to analyze the situation that had happened to her from the beginning until now. She then wrote on the blackboard everything she knew about the infected people around her. I wrote that they are so guarded in any way that they could nuke it. She also wrote that they can't kill any living thing whatsoever, and they don't love anyone, and for them all living things are the same. Finally, she wrote that they were trying to find a way for her and the 12 people they visited. After her analysis was complete, she went out to the people working in the outhouse and asked one of them to come inside with her to ask her a few questions. She asked Kirill to sit down and asked him what his name was, and he told her that he didn't have one, but that the name of the person he was currently in was Lawrence. Carl didn't care for the honesty and she spoke to him. I asked him if they read her books. Valorance told her yes, and how it was beautiful and had a plot and character development and so on. But Carl didn't believe him and felt he was lying to her. Florence showed her and told her certain sentences from her own books. And not only that, he also told her the page numbers for the page with these sentences. I was fascinated and believed him and realized that there was no way the infected were lying. Of course, she knew they weren't dry when she knew Lawrence wasn't dry. Because as I said, all infected people are connected. Kirill then asked him what Helen thought of her books. Kirill asked him this question because she's sure he knows because Helen was infected with the virus before she died. I mean, she was connected to the rest of the infected and her memories are still with them. Florence got a little nervous and knew that Helen wasn't very fond of books. Not only that, I recognized that Helen didn't finish the last book until the end, and she read half of it and read the last 2 pages just to know the ending. Carol, of course, realizing that her friend and assistant had gone blind and wanted to be alone, asked Lawrence to walk away. Carol went into her notebook and wrote in her notes that through this interview, she was 1,000,000% sure that the infected would never lie. Carol decided to take advantage of this dialogue to be able to. I took some and went to the hospital to visit Zosia. She pursued Zosia and saw her very happy. She then emphasized that Zosia tried to open the yogurt ring but couldn't, so she helped her. I then apologized to her for the bomb she had been hit with. Then I told her that the White House spokesperson who spoke to me on TV was letting me know that you don't yet understand how the coronavirus works on humans. So I ask you and tell you, how did you understand the topic? Zosia told her yes. They thought about asking her if there was a way they could undo the docking that had taken place. Her husband got nervous and knew they didn't know how to answer that kind of question. Think of her understanding that there's already a way to undo everything because she knows that if there isn't, her husband might as well just say no. And as I said, no way. Think about honesty. But she didn't go home. She went to the lab in the hospital and started looking for a strong anesthetic, which I was able to find, and I took it and went home. The housekeeper did something a little crazy. They said that she injected herself with this drug so that you can try the first one on yourself before you decide to use it on Zosia, and she started recording herself on video to see how strong this drug is, and just like that my friend fell asleep, and after a little while I woke up again. I found N. From there, she was very surprised because she saw herself hallucinating a little bit, and a couple of times she heard herself in the video howling because Helen didn't like her books, so she knew that the drug really works and is very good and makes the person release everything in their heart at once. The next day, she took some and went to the hospital and then went to Zosha and offered to go to the park with her to get some air and sun, and Zosha, of course, locked up and went with her, and Then, she took out the syringe containing the anesthetic and injected it into the solution that enters Zosha's body. After a while, the syringe stops, and the two of them get off and enter the garden. She started asking her natural questions to see if the anesthetic works or not. The moment Zosha started to hallucinate, Kirill understood that the anesthetic works without thinking, so she asked her how to undo everything that is currently happening and return all humans to their nature. But Carol didn't understand the honesty and pressed her hard to respond, and unfortunately Zosha didn't respond. The other infected people in the hospital gathered everyone here because they are related to Zoshea and know what Carol is trying to do, so they gathered everyone around Carol and tried to take Zoshea away, but Carol breathed into Zoshea's hand so that no one would take her away and ordered them to go away. They had already heard her words and sat back, and shockingly, they decided to give her a pedicure. They preferred to repeat this phrase a lot, making a rigid gesture, until suddenly Zusha, who is also very charming, stood up and fell to the ground. One of them came and realized that Zosha was dying and asked her permission to follow her. So Kirill stood up. They cut the cuffs between her and Zosha and started giving Zosha CPR, with Kirill feeling that she was the cause of Zosha's general condition when she gave her a brain tumor. Each wife leaves and takes her back to the hospital, and Kirill goes in to check on her. The nurse recognizes her and tells her she'll be fine and walks away. Kirill was even surprised because this was the first time that an HIV-positive person walked around without shrugging or being afraid or not wanting to sit with Kirill. Kirill didn't care about honesty and decided to get some sleep and rest from everything that had happened. First, Kirill went to sleep. The infected, my friend, they all knew that she had fallen asleep, so they all gathered each other and walked out of the hospital. It's not just the injured who are hospitalized who are walking. No, all the infected people living in the city of Albuquerque got on buses and left the city altogether. After not much more than an hour of sleep, I was surprised to find no one in hospital. I picked up the phone and dialed the number you are supposed to dial to reach the group. I heard a recorded message on the phone. I heard someone's voice saying, "Kirill, our feelings for you are the same and whatever you ask for will be answered. But after what happened to you and what you did to Zosha, I need to take a break from you for a while." She hung up the phone in shock, walked out of the hospital and went to the top of the tallest building in Albuquerque to find out for sure. Indeed, the city's residents are now all out in buses, rickshaws, and walking. She is shocked by this and keeps cursing loudly at them, takes a few and goes home. As soon as she got it, she started writing letters to the other 12 people who had immunity, and she wrote everything that happened to her verbatim. As she began recording a video, she said in the video that there is a way to undo all of this, a way for the world to return to normal. She also explained that people with the virus don't know how to lie. What's more, they all gurgled when I asked one of them to say what it was all about. They were so horrified by the question that they are now walking out of the city and leaving it alone. She emphasized the remaining 12 who are immune means that the infected humans are poor and need someone to save them. Anyone who wants to help me with that should talk to me anytime. She then called the same number and asked for the message she was going to write, and the recording she made had 12 copies, each copy being translated verbatim and traced to the 12 people who had immunity. After hanging up the phone, she put the message and the recording in front of her house for someone to pick up. Indeed, none of the HIV-positive congregation come themselves to Kirill's house. No, they sent a drone that came, took the message and the recording and chased in the air from Scat. And like I said, they're not walking because they're afraid of Carol. They're literally upset that Carol blinded them, and that's it. The next day, Carol gets up in the morning, cleans her house and garden, collects all the garbage, calls the number, and asks them to come and pick up the garbage because it's piled up in her house, and then she breaks down and runs away. A little later, the same drone that is the drone comes again and now grabs the garbage bag and raises it into the air. But it means that because the bag is flimsy, the airplane gets caught in the light pole and all the garbage is on the floor. Carol gets tired of it and has to pick up the garbage again by herself. You take it in the cart and go to the garbage bins located elsewhere and start growing garbage. Meanwhile, Kieran noticed that the garbage cans had almost nothing but silver milk cartons, and very many milk cartons. Kieran tried to reach out and grab a carton of them, but was met with a stop in the garbage can, and literally a sea of milk cartons, all silver. Get this? Almost all infected people drink this yogurt in enormous quantities. We hold the can of this yogurt to learn the name of the factory where it's made, so we understand the meaning of this particular yogurt. Soon you will reach the factory. Of course, it means the factory is empty because, as I told you, all the residents are still here. It's important for Carol to see machines in places like this. A strange yellow-colored substance drips from these machines. You're surprised because this is supposed to be a machine making milk. What about the material from the machine? So you know that you can rotate as it is in the factory until it enters the warehouse. There are many, many shakers with white-colored powder. If you don't understand or know what it is, you'll take it home. Then you'll do tests on this material to find out the degree of acidity, etc. When you're done, you record a new video. In this video, she visualizes a carton of yogurt and the remaining 12 know that the infected are drinking this yogurt. But really, that's not milk. No. They drink a strange yellow-colored liquid that they make with water and this powder. But I also don't know what this powder is or what it's made of. Those who want to help me, I also wish you would ring me, because right now none of you have rang. Finish recording. Then she takes the recording and puts it in front of the house, and after some time she takes a drone to make 12 copies and distribute it to 12 other people who are as immune as Kirol. Afterward, Kirol entered the house and played hostage. When she entered the house, she heard and saw that a group of hungry dogs had broken into her garden and started digging up Helen's grave because they were hungry and wanted to eat her. The dogs, by the way, got excited and came here because they are stray dogs, but of course, as there is no... When I saw them, I went crazy and tied the cart and tried to hit them with it, but the dogs got scared of the cart and ran away. The next day, afraid that the dogs would come back, she went to a construction material factory in the city here, started collecting concrete tiles from there, and all the while, she began to lower these tiles with a pink slab from the Arabic, and covered Helen's entire grave with tiles. There's no way the dogs can get to her body. In the meantime, Kellogg's banged into the thorns. She thought the ground got dirty like that, and sometimes she took her mind off the barcode written on the check. I thought it was a good idea, so I took the barcode to the supermarket in town and started wiping the barcode on the barcode with the barcode scanner. But it was a mistake, she thought, but she didn't give up hope and began to circle the supermarket again for any identical product of the same size. After a little bit of rotation, I found the same shipment with the same size and the same barcode. She rejoices and learns that the factory that makes this chakra is called aggregate culture. After a little while, you get to this factory and you walk into this factory and it's completely empty and there's no electricity. You use the flashlight and keep turning here and there. Here you will find many, many fruits that are frozen because, by the way, on the turn, they made it into the factory's freezer. It continues to rotate again and again until you see something that you freak out as soon as you see it, screaming and running outside the factory like a mad woman. Then she calms herself down, runs on the cart, gets the camera, and returns to the factory. She visualizes all this and now explains in her video that she is in a factory and a cold storage warehouse. I imagine that this thing is a human head, and there are many, many more frozen heads and other parts of human beings. Kirol visualizes all these things and is shocked and gasping in horror. After she finishes filming, she goes home and writes a letter with all these details to send to the other two, letting them know that these infected people are killing and eating humans. But Kirol felt that the infected, they don't want to send this message to some people. She decides to get in her carriage and travel to the city where Kampa is supposed to live. After some time, she would arrive in the city. You're also surprised that it's completely empty. She won't care about that and will enter the most luxurious building in the city, the Grand Hotel, because she knows that Kampa definitely lives in the most luxurious place. She enters and there is a Mastani Kumba there. Kamba knew the infected were there, but as soon as they found out that Carol had come to town here, they took some of them and walked away. Carol, the recording is out, and she's still playing it to show Kamba that brown people are cannibals. She was shocked and told her that this recording shows that the infected eat humans, right? If yes, then I know we shouldn't be working on it. Of course, she was mad that you're just going through the motions and living your life, but there's something. He got up to understand her, my friend, and turned on the TV for her to understand everything. He specifically played her a video recording of the injured people. John Cena, my friend, appeared on this TV to explain everything. John Cena said in the video, "How are you, Carol? You know that we can't kill or harm any living being, as it goes against our principles. This box is made in every country in the world to cover the food of 7 billion sufferers. This one packet was known to contain 300 calories. The components of the liquid are water and human protein powder." We were shocked by this in John Cena Campbell and told her, "Almost every day about 100,000 people die naturally, whether in accidents or otherwise. Instead of those 100,000 people who died and were buried and no one used them, we bring them in and cut them up and make this powder so that we can live. Because that's how they died naturally without us harming them." And of course it means they were the wronged ones and the recording was closed. After all this, Kamba asked if he had known Arif for a long time, and he told her that he had known him for a week because John Cena was here with me and we were staying up late together. So he told her that she avoided this frown and visited him because he was very receptive. So he knew that he was not the only one who was receptive, but the other two people were also receptive because they were all immune. The second person who came to them now isolated himself in Barak way and didn't respond to them, so they didn't know if he was receptive or not. Kirol, of course, was devastated, and she told him that she knew where the other 11 people were from, so he knew that he was in contact with them, and they have meetings from time to time and meet each other very often to keep the communication between them, but without Kirol, because she is the only one of them who doesn't know how to control her anger. Of course, Kirol blossomed since no one reached out to her. She felt like she was fighting alone and that she was the only one trying to figure out what was going on. I asked Kamba's permission and went into the bathroom and let her freeze and scream. After Ayad was done, she went outside and fell asleep on the sofa because she was tired. When Kamba saw her sleeping, he cut her off with the blanket and she fell asleep. On the second day, when she finds Kamba ready for breakfast, she goes and comes to eat with him. When you're done eating, change your penis to go away. And when she goes, Kampa comes out to pick her up. Cannon told him that if they didn't act, the next one would try to kill them. He reassured her, saying they wouldn't try us without our permission. He knew that in order for them to try, they would have to modify the virus to make it suitable for our own stem cells. Of course, they can't take stem cell samples without our consent because it's a painful process and they don't help anyone. By the way, they asked me for a sample, but I pronounced it very normal and they didn't do anything. This makes Carol a little nervous and scared for herself, so she now picks up the phone and calls the number where she always communicates with the second group. She tells them that she is not okay with any of them taking any samples from her and her stem cells, nor is she trying to convert them and keep them. They reassured her, and now, my friend, they literally wrote in big bold letters on a bulletin board in the middle of the city that they would not take any samples from her, and they respect that. They were very colorful, and she finally assured her life, got down on the knee of her cart, and walked. On the other side of Paraki, we see one of the 12 who are immune, namely this person who will never interact with other infected people, and has so far kept himself in isolation. He sits at home and listens to radio frequencies and waves and tries all radio frequencies, and does not find any frequency in them except for frequency 86130 because there is a banging sound like a working machine, but we do not know exactly which sound nor any source. While this person hears the sound of a carriage standing in front of his house, he looks out the window and finds 6 infected people, puts an eating utensil in front of his surah, gets into the carriage and walks away. He goes out and goes to the eating sunnah and sees that it has all kinds of food, but he doesn't want to eat because he doesn't trust them, and this sunnah falls on him. He throws the food away and notices an envelope growing on it. He grabs this flap and finds that it has Carol's name written on it. This shutter opens and finds in the videotape. He quickly takes the tape, goes home and plays the tape after the TV. This video finds Carol saying this message to 12 very successful people. And I'm telling you that there is a way to end all of this and return infected humans back to normal. She hears that the infected don't know how to find him, and is assured by him that there is a way to get everything back to normal. But she doesn't know what that way is, so she needs the help of anyone who can help her. In fact, this very much appeals to this person, and he decides to help Kirol and go and meet her himself, then prepare himself and pack everything in his bag. He takes the carriage out of the garage and tries to move with his own carriage. He gets off and tries to turn it on. The old woman who was infected came and talked to him and said, "I can help you." "How, my son?" He warmed up to her and told her not to call me my son. "You are not my mother." My friends awarded a high probability that she is his real mother, but she turned out to be a mutant, as mutant humans always do. That's why he was scared of her and didn't want to talk. Along the way, he tasted the car on the road until it started, so he got in the car, and from here the person begins their journey to Albuquerque to meet Kiron and learn that this person is named Manusos, and this journey is very, very, very long. Manusos keeps walking in his car for a very long distance until he finishes the house and takes gherkin from the trunk of the car and goes down to look on the road for any car. He takes gasoline from it, and in fact his luck is good, and he must find a broken down and parked vehicle far from the road. So he starts transferring gasoline from it into the gherkin he has with him by means of a hose, and then returns to his vehicle from the second, puts gasoline in it, and continues the rest of his long and tiring journey from the second. Literally, the journey will be very long because he is supposed to have traveled from South America to North America. This journey, by the way, can take many days, so Musu takes breaks, gets off the Arabian, checks the map to see where he is, and continues his journey. He drove from one city to the next, and any car he encountered, he would take gasoline from it. He would drive from one city to the second, to the third, to the fifth, and any car he met would take gasoline from it. Just as Manusis could not walk because it was raining, so he stood in Arabia and began to fill water bottles with water from the rain here beside him so that he could drink from it afterward. Because, by the way, Manusos hates these infected people very much and is not even familiar with the mineral water they put in the supermarket. Anyway, on the second day when the rain subsided a bit, the road was completed, but he stayed on the road and got hungry. He stopped the Arabic car, got out, went to a river near the road and started catching fish from the river. Then he continues his journey from again to the border of Panama, and then he must get off the Arabian because this road is impossible for the Arabian to walk on because it is a jungle, nothing more and nothing less. Then Nassau sadly dismounts from the carriage and puts down his beloved carriage. In the midst of his grief before he leaves, he finds a group of infected people who live in this area gathered and talking to Manus. One of them begged Manusos not to continue this journey on foot because the distance is about 100 kilometers, and they are all in the middle of the jungle in order to reach Panama. Other than that, this method is in the middle of the forest, and the forest is full of poisonous insects and animals inside the trees that have thorns up to 20 centimeters long. These thorns are bacterial. So far, I offer that they drive themselves in any way they want because Kirol, but Manusos is not convinced by this talk, and Gherkin took the gasoline out of the bag of the carriage and dumped all the gasoline on the carriage and fondled it because the infected do not drive to it. He went on his way as he was. He walked through the forest all night alone until it blew over. He made a small campfire and rested in front of it. Then he did the whole route and walked for days in the forest, eating simple food he had collected in a bag, and one day he reached the trees that contained the poisonous thorns. He was frightened by the shape of the thorns and began to run past them with new caution, but his focus was on the trees and not on the ground. He was tucked into a harness with his back against the thorns, and all the thorns of the tree were pelting his back. The earth is rigid and rigid from the intensity of the earth. Then he takes his back out of these thorns and sits in a place like this and lights a fire and grabs a knife and puts it in the fire until it hardens, and then tries to make the wound in his back in the hope that it will be vaporized. Then he rests for a while, and on the second day he continues on his way. But my friend, it's going to be very difficult because of the heavy bleeding that is now in his back. Inside those thorns were really poisonous, and now he's dying. Manusis literally can't go on much further and falls to the ground. And when he faints, he finds a plane that comes out of the sky, and people get out of it. I mean, I don't want to tell you, of course, that these infected people have been watching Manusos the whole trip, and when they find him fainting, they decide to go in and help him. On the other side of Albuquerque, we see that Kirul is so fed up with her loneliness that she found a firework, put it in front of the house, and blew it up. The lesson is that Carol puts a toy rocket in the side of her brain all the time in order to die because she is frankly too old to live much on her own, so she closes her eyes to wait for this rocket and dies, and with a rocket that is usually launched from the side of her brain about 2 years old and hits the garage of the house, and the garage starts to burn, so Carol stands up, miserable and sad, and goes to the hose and starts lighting a fire in the fire. Second day after, Carol takes the cart and goes to the Aldo store. She picks them up and returns home. When they get to the front of the house, they open the paint and write things on the road in a very large font. After she finishes writing, she enters the house and remains stuck in her depression and sadness. Suddenly you hear a car stop outside the house. You go out to see who it is and find it's a wife. Ayad collapses and goes to throw herself into Zusha's lap. By the way, Zoshea came back because Carol had written on the floor in bold letters that she and the other residents were coming back because she was no longer able to be alone in this isolation. At the same time, in Panama, we see Manusos overdose and find himself in the operating room of a hospital. A doctor is treating the wounds on his back. The doctor was delighted when he saw that Manusos had recovered and reassured him and knew he was out of danger. But he must stay here in the hospital a while. But Manusos is a fanatic and grabs a fanatic and proves it to this doctor. He's hospitalized and everyone knows he's gone. He then goes to the receptionist and asks where they are, and the receptionist informs him that they are currently in Panama. Manusos took a bite, walked out of the hospital, got into the ambulance, and returned to complete his journey from Thani to America. This trip, by the way, lasts for days, but very few days. We let Manusos continue his journey as he is, and we go back to Alpaki. We then see Kirol talking to Zoshea and asking her if the rest of the population will come back like Zoshea. Zoshea told her that the entire population would return to the city in an hour or two, because we have all forgiven you. Kirol came back and asked, "They're sleeping where already? Do they sleep in houses like hers and such, or in a different place? From the moment the world becomes one, no one owns anything, meaning they have no houses left, but they sleep in such and such a place and together. If you want to take her to this place to see, you stop immediately and take her, and they both go to this place." This place, by the way, is a large corporation stadium with 2 million people infected with the virus. If you want to get away with it and ask why is everyone sleeping here together, I told her that here they sleep to save electricity, natural gas, etc. Instead of sitting in a house and consuming electricity and gas on their own, they all sit together here and consume the same electricity and gas without. Carol is astonished by all this, and even more so when she learns from Zosha that all infected people in the world sleep in places like this together to save money. Only Carol understands everything and is ready to go. But Zoshea offered to sleep with them here today, which she thought was strange, but agreed and slept with them. The second day in the morning, Zoshea rode her cart to the edge of the rest of the house, shrugged and walked along. As for Noel herself, she went into the house, went to the crystal ball containing the analysis, and lied a new one, the one she'd known all along. The infected mean they eat dead humans. After a while, Zusha brought her a second home and the two went out for a walk together. At this moment, she took her Zushia and went to the mountain above the city. I saw a contagious droplet, so I made a zucchini. Why haven't the drops here worked yet? Zoshea knew that they used these drops so that they could distribute the liquid they lived on for all the medicine. Think about this house, because so far she is not receptive to the idea that they are making this liquid from hardworking human beings. On the same day after nightfall, the two of them go to the star observatory and look for a star called Kepler 22. We know that this star is the star from which the signal for the DNA that causes this virus comes, and we also know that there is a planet orbiting around this star called Kepler 22b, and the size of this planet is almost twice as big as the Earth. I thought that when she learns this, she will ask Zosha if people live on this planet. Zosha told her, yes, we love them very much and thank them. We must spread the virus to them in every space. She told her that she would be shocked by this, and when she got home she would write a new note in the ballast. From Zosha, I learned that they are planning to build a giant antenna that will consume all of the world's energy to be able to send a signal to all the planets in space to spread the virus. When her pain is over, she makes Zushi bring her another pain. I thought Carol was writing her novel all over again, and she was happy to be honest. Carol laughed at her, not wanting to tell her that she was going to use these pens to write notes. So I heard her, and the rest are blind, and I entered the house. On the second day, Zushi took Carol and they went to a restaurant in the city. He saw that this restaurant was destroyed years ago, and Carol used to love this restaurant very much, and she used to sit in it before it was destroyed. So when she entered the restaurant, she was very happy, and afterwards she talks to Zosha and tells her that she used to sit here, and the first novel she wrote was written here, and there was a waitress named Bree who used to like her very much because she was kind to her. And as she talks, Carol sees Bree herself coming to serve her the appetizers, and she is still talking. She was shocked because Zaman is supposed to be when this place is destroyed. 6 Brits went because she has a family and a household and the whole country is down, and she went. She understood that it was her husband who was blinded by all this, and Brit brought herself to pay attention to it. As happy as she was so gone because she knew it wasn't real, and she didn't like that her sweetest days and memories of the place were being manipulated, so she got upset, grabbed some, and left scat without responding to anyone. Her wife came in behind her and tried to understand why she was gone. Carol asked her how Bree came to be. Her wife recognized that before the docking and the virus, Bree was a pure character and lived in Miami and got married, and Carol started and said, "You transformed her, changed her appearance, and brought her here to Albuquerque to play the role that you've been thinking about for years. I know you want to be as distracted as I am so you don't continue analyzing. It's true that I made a mistake, but no, whatever you do, I will continue, and in the end I will find a way to undo all this talk and put the world back to normal." It had nothing to do with them knowing that she only gives up when she finds a solution. Consider the threat briefly. Second day after. By the way, today will be almost 60 days since Helen's death and the spread of the virus around the world. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about this information, but it's important. Now we see Zosha and Kirol preparing mushrooms together. We note here that Kirol is saved, fell in love with Zosha, and still considers her a sadistic friend. But that's not our topic now since they're standing talking. Zosha sensed that Minosos would soon be walking into Albuquerque at Kirol's here. She told Kirol that someone who... Carol was surprised, but meanwhile Minosos had already reached the entrance to the Mexican border and was getting closer and closer to Albuquerque. It means in the right sense he has a simple need to reach out to Carol. But one moment, my friend, I'll tell you on the fly and we'll get back to the whole Minosos and Carol conversation and all that. At the same time, but in another part of the world, in a place where there are Amerindian tribes, we see a girl named Kosei Mayu. And this girl, by the way, is one of the 12 people who are as immune as Carol. Today, Kosei Mayu is very nervous because today she's supposed to take a version of the virus that will be suitable for her to transform and become like the second infected humans. She was scared, and then the infected people gathered and hugged her and reassured her until she was reassured. At the same time, this is the plane that contains the virus intended for Kusimayo. It now came and landed, and someone came and handed one of the people of Kusimayo the box containing the virus. He then takes this box and goes to the rest of the tribe, and literally they all gather around Kusimayo. They then take the virus out of the box, and Kusimayo begins to smell the virus. Afterward, her body convulses rigidly and she falls asleep on the floor. But shortly afterward, she rises up and is transformed, just like the other 7 billion infected people around the world. If Kirol doesn't find a way to end it all, she could be as close to her costume as Kusimayo and transform. Anyway, in the meantime, Kirol had stopped tripping the ambulance that Manusos had brought here, and Zushi now knew she had to walk so that Manusos could make himself comfortable and talk to Kirol at his leisure. Kirol told her exactly that, and indeed Zushi took some and walked away. A little later, Manusos is next, and he's a little nervous and scared of Carol, but he gathers his courage and honks at Carol in his car, and Carol comes out to him. Carol introduced herself and asked him to come inside the house, but he was scared and opened the ambulance and asked her to come and talk to him in the car instead of her house. Carol tried to reassure him and went inside, meaning she brought her phone from home to use it as a translator. As soon as Manusos saw the phone, he panicked and quickly took it from Kirol and told her that infected people are faking through phones. Kirol tried to take the phone from him, but Manusos refused and threw her phone into the drain. Kirol was very annoyed and cursed Manusos and told him to take some and walk away. So he grabbed the knife, put it in the back of the magnet on the phone and swallowed it. He then took the phone and went home to Carol and apologized, and Carol accepted his apology and allowed him to enter the house. The first time the mouse enters the house, it goes crazy and searches for any labeling device here or there. I started researching a lot until I found one that actually worked. Kroll went crazy when she saw the device and thought everyone was trolling her, so she called Zosha and asked her if they were trolling her. I shook her hand and let her know that this is not a sonification device, this is a motion sensor and who put the device here. I put it next to the liquor shelf, which is a godsend because if Carol thinks she's going to drink, she knows. She blossomed when she realized it because she didn't trust him. I locked the rail with Zushi. She then went and reassured Manusos and learned that it was not her old friend who had placed the device. I reassured Manusos, he fell silent. Then she took him and brought him to a second house of her paradise here in the city, to stay there for a while until he calmed down and rested, and then spoke. And I went along. When it was over, Manusos called the contact number and asked the person on the other end to have Zoshia, who had been communicating with him earlier, come over to his house because he wanted to talk to him. The second one told him that and locked the door. An hour later, Carol, who was sitting in her very ordinary house, went out to look out the window, and was shocked to see Zoshia's car standing in front of the house where Manusos was sitting. Without thinking, she runs home because she's afraid for Zoshia Lassan. Because, by the way, she considers Zosha to be her friend. But when she enters the house, she finds a very normal Zosha talking to Manus. I scrutinized it and asked her what they were talking about. Manus knows that Zoshia knew everything and everything that happened and he changed it. Carol scrutinized further and took Zushia and walked her back home. She goes in with her because she knew Manusos all along, and that they took her to live for a long time because of their aunt with them and all that. The wife had told her that they couldn't. In the midst of my friend's henna, the wife suddenly fell asleep on the floor and her whole body began to convulse. She decided to remain silent because she didn't make any movement or bring out negative emotions in order for the wife to be affected and become agitated. The reason this is happening is definitely not Menothus. So I came to Menothus's house and he was holding one of the infected people and trying to work on the experiment, which was to hold him and keep shouting at him, and he would start to convulse, and then Menothus would grab his radio and turn it on to frequency 8613 arrow, which had a strange banging sound and he didn't understand it. He then brought the voice from the radio closer to the victim's body and began to call out to him and try to normalize him, but the victim's body began to. Carol can't see this paradise because Manusos doesn't understand what he is doing. So she took the gun from her house and the shot hit the side of Manusos. Manusos got scared and the man pushed him. Zosha is soon overtaken by Zosha and Carol checks on her. At this moment, Carol is talking to Zosha. Zoshia knows that they are angry with them and should walk away because Manusos is a very dishonest person and not going to treat them well. They can't stay near him because he will hurt them. Forgive us, she tells Carol, but we have to leave the city at the second and walk as far as Manusos walks. Then Zoshia went out with Carol, sadly kissed her goodbye, and walked out of the city with the rest of the residents. Carol went to Minimosini and told him that the entire population was leaving because of him, and Minimosini said, "What does that mean? You're right about the way we can put things back together. Because of the experience I had today, I learned a lot of things that will help us find the way." She thought about believing him and let him know that Bonnie Autumn was mentally deranged and couldn't think straight, and that she wouldn't continue with him because his method was barbaric and she couldn't work with him like that. I took a few of them and left him as surprised as he is in a single city, and I was gone. And of course my friend, when Carol went, she went and stayed with Zosha in another house in another city. The next day, Zosha came back to talk to Carol and told her that things would get better soon. Carol was surprised and told her, "I believe that you found a way to attribute me and turn me into your own, but that is impossible because you didn't take my Algerian cells, so how did you do it? And you don't know to take it without my consent, as you said." She asked Carol if there was another way they could take her stem cell biopsy, but Carol didn't reply. So Carol realized that they had already taken her stem cell biopsy, and that it was through the analysis samples she had taken in the past. So she became upset and asked her how long it would take for them to make the new formula that would transform her and make her look like them. She decides to go after herself and save herself, so she decides to go back to the Eye of Demenos to find a solution for the two of them, and indeed, after some time, Zosha took her in a private plane and dropped her off at the door of the house, and the plane, by the way, had a strange and huge canteen like that, and it felt like it was locked, so Carol got off the plane from a scooter and took Zosha with her and walked. Manusos was surprised. What took Carol again? Why did it come down like that? And what's in the canteen with her? And Carol said to Manasos that you have a point. We must now find a solution to the lack of science. When Mosini asked, "What's in this canteen?" And the first asked, "What's in this canteen?" Then she shocks him and tells him it's a nuclear bomb. If they don't figure out how to find a way to get back to being human again, they can blow themselves up and die, or they can turn into people like that. Of course, it means another season, but we don't know when, maybe next year or something like that. But my friend predicted that when that wall comes down, we will be the first people to summarize it. With a serious sincerity,